Welcome to the full moon and a lunar eclipse in Pisces. That's happening September 7th, 2025 at 1:08 p.m. Central Time. So here we are in eclipse season. All right. Because eclipses are turns of fate. And with lunar eclipses like this one, we've got a good setup for actually realizing what it is that is no longer serving us, what's no longer useful to us, so that we can let it go. Our individual and our collective evolutionary path really depends on doing this kind of work. Often, like, there's things in our lives that we kind of grumble and get along with, but they're kind of albatrosses around our neck. And if we don't ever just do the work of stopping and acknowledging how it gets in our way, we're never going to let it go. And it's always going to be there slowing us down. And now is the chance for us to see what's getting in the way of our progress. And it might really be scary, but especially if we've been trying really hard not to see it, that is human nature. We don't want to see what makes us uncomfortable, so we try to avoid thinking about it, but we might not be able to avoid doing that at the eclipse. So we've got the sun and the moon just 3 degrees away from the nodal axis, and that makes this lunation a full eclipse. And the next one, the bookend one that's happening on September 21st, that one's only going to be a partial eclipse, so this one is getting more of the juice. And, have a look in your chart and see where Pisces falls. What house is that in? That's where the action is really happening. So bust out your chart and have a look. And, while you're at it, won't you gently caress the like button? Pet the subscribe? I don't want to never see you again. Thank you. The North Node is on the moon in Pisces, directing us to let our feelings and our emotions lead with this eclipse. But that doesn't mean we should be emotionally reactive. Like, I don't want my feelings and emotions to lead me to punch somebody in the face. We want to slow down and have a real, close look at what we're feeling and let those emotions show us where we need to go, what's really important to us. And if we can do that, we're going to get that a lot of support from the universe. The moon is also receiving some backup support from Pisces' original recipe ruler, Jupiter. Jupiter is trining the North Node and the moon from Cancer, and he's really happy in Cancer. That's his happy place. And the thing with trines is we have to realize that they're happening and that we've got the keys and do something with that energy. Seize the day kind of thing, Jupiter in a water sign, Cancer, emphasizes how important it is for us to understand and listen to what we're feeling right now. Jupiter is also sextile the South Node and the Sun, and that's true. But sextiles are a different kind of energy. They require effort, but they don't make us feel uncomfortable enough to push us into doing something like a square might do, or an opposition. And trines don't push us either, but we can kind of accidentally walk into the flow of the magic, And so the challenge really is realizing what we could do with support from the universe. We could see this as our prayers being answered in some respect. And just the challenge is realizing that we could have the wind in our sails if we weigh the anchor and open up. Neptune, today's ruler of Pisces, is right in between Uranus and Pluto, and they're trine to each other. And that gives all these planets, along with Saturn, which is right next to Neptune, a lot of gas. And this is good. That trine between Uranus and Pluto is only minutes from being exact. And so that's really powerful too. They're going to be dancing together in and out of orb until 2030. So this is a major long-term deal, but that doesn't mean we can't grab the energy and use it right now and over again for big changes. Here's what that looks like, so you can see what I'm saying. Yeah, so that doesn't mean we should sit around and wait for this thing to finish cooking. Trines can come and go without much happening, or it can grease the skids for things that we don't want to have happen. So we have to get up on our hind legs and do things. On the other side of the eclipse opposition is the Sun and the South Node, along with Mercury, and Mercury rules Virgo, so that's a pretty strong placement there too. Virgo is all about systems and organization, logic and planning, things like that. In evolutionary astrology, we talk about Virgo and Pisces axis as being, because they're right across the street from each other, as the axis of sadism and masochism. And now that the eclipses are in these two signs, I'm really hopeful that we can beat back some of this normalization of cruelty that seems to be, normalized these days. So the idea here is that Virgo, shadow Virgo, can go way too far in taking that natural organizational perfectionist zeal that they have to the point of causing real pain. Believing they're thinking that they're going to feel finally fulfilled and finally fill that hole of lack, because Virgo is all about lack. Fill that hole with power instead of what they really want is to be loved, and they've rejected the idea of love. And they think that power is going to fill in the blanks for that, and it's just not. Shadow Virgo people aim to control, even to the point of physical pain. If we dial that up another notch and give it societal power, it can go so far as, wiping out whole countries or nationalities. This is the essence of emotional immaturity, emotionally damaged immaturity. It's really a projection of deep shame and self-hatred projected on other people because you don't want to think that about yourself. Then there is the Pisces shadow side, the masochist, the one that enjoys pain. Shadow Pisces only recognizes themselves as a victim. They only give themselves value for how much pain they can take. And I've been that person. I have got a PhD in the Pisces Virgo axis, to be honest with you. Yeah, I was taught that enduring pain was noble and that I will get my reward in heaven, reward for this suffering in heaven. And that's how, I was told that it was wrong for me to complain for being abused. And no pain, no gain. That's another one that's been debunked, by the way. Sore muscles grow more slowly. And pain is there for a reason. It's to help us realize that something needs to stop, that something's wrong, and we can take corrective action because of it, not so that we can build calluses and stop feeling. When we resign ourselves to tolerating pain, all of the usefulness is erased. It doesn't have any purpose anymore. And while we're at it with dumb little sayings that make people feel shame about everything, about life, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That was originally a sarcastic response when people said, like, well, why are you living in poverty? Because people choose to live in poverty because they enjoy it, right? No, they don't. It was originally meant as like, oh, sure, I'll just sprout wings and fly out of this poverty. No problem. So every time you hear that, like, that is beyond sus. And another little thing before, and I'll end this digression, but entitlements, that's another one that's been like it did not start out as being something to shame people with, but it sure ended up that way. Entitlements are called entitlements because we are entitled to them, because we paid for them, specifically paid for them. That's why we're entitled to them, not because we feel entitled to not have to work or something. Like, it's gotten all screwed up, and it really, man, they know how to shame us. They really do. But I digress. So moving on. Shadow Pisces is about shame, feeling like we deserve to be kicked because we don't deserve kindness. But someday, if we suck it up right and don't complain, if we grovel, we'll be given the thing we long for, the thing that we give away to other people all the time: unconditional love and acceptance. And that's really the kicker for the Shadow Virgo and Shadow Pisces. What they want is love. That's really what they want, love and acceptance. But they have not learned that love and acceptance doesn't come from other people, except for when we're children and we're learning that we're lovable. When our parents were supposed to teach us that we are lovable so that we can love ourselves. And if we didn't get that as children, that is something that we need to learn how to do for ourselves now. And then we're going to have that internal wellspring of self-acceptance and love that is lacking from these shadow expressions of Virgo and Pisces. So some questions to kind of get you thinking at this full moon eclipse. Are we actually like kind of feeling nostalgic for a more orderly, predictable time when maybe things were kind of harsh, but we didn't have to think for ourselves, and now we're telling ourselves a little story about how it really wasn't that bad that we couldn't say what we thought, or, got beaten or whatever it was. And our our sons telling our hearts to, shut the fuck up and get on with living, not to go after all those feelings, not to go after our desires. Are we angry about not receiving love from other people when we won't give it to ourselves? And are we afraid of making a change that'll move us forward instead of just falling back and thinking that that's going to be easy? I'm wrestling with this right now myself. So, what about our old buddy Pluto, planet of destruction and rebirth, planet of the soul itself? Pluto is having a good word with the Sun and the South Node, and here's what that looks like. That is a 225-degree sesquiquadrate. It's a broken up square. We're meant to slow down and learn what society and the bigger picture wants and what's being asked of us before we can move forward. And the big thing here is integrating what the sun wants with how society will allow that to play out. And Pluto will not be defeated. And here's something that a lot of folks kind of miss. The more miserable we are inside, as private people, the more misery there is in the world, we like unconsciously spread it around. It's like everywhere we go, everything we say, just going to the grocery store and being pissed off the whole time you're there. And, you're like a little Tasmanian devil of anger out there, and it has an effect. It's not just you. It's viral. Like you kick your kid, and then the kid kicks the dog, and then the dog bites the neighbor, and like it just keeps going. So my big point here is, societally, we have this idea that taking care of yourself and loving yourself, not like in a conceited sort of way, but honoring your own needs and desires, that kind of self-care is selfish. And it's not. It's a public service because you are part of the public. See how that works? And besides that, Pisces is about the whole. And that is why, that's really what we're getting at here, is changing the whole on a granular level of one person at a time. And you're in charge of changing you. So now that we have our personal lives sorted out, what about the politics? And I'm going to be using different words to describe things from now on because I think I was overheard last video saying some things that are frowned upon these days. So bear with me as I avoid senseless shit. Straight off the bat, DC Uranus trines the midheaven. So in the DC chart, let me throw that up. Uranus is trining the midheaven, and that tees up unpredictable, possibly flailing around, very visible action. The sun, there with the South Node and in the 10th house here in the Midwest and in Washington, D.C., part of what we're talking about here is systems of government and how we think about them, and a strong desire on the part of the sun, since he's there with the South Node, to go back to the way things were. And I have a very strong impression that this going back for them is not, back to the 50s or 60s. They want to go all the way back to fiefdoms and kings and serfs. Like, if you dig into what these folks are really all about, they do not want a meritocracy. They want impunity for the kings. No surprises there, of course. But remember, we have got free will and we're on a linear timeline. We can't just, turn that track back around to the 1500s. And just because the current leadership wants something doesn't mean that they're going to get it, because we are not devolving as a society. It's not happening. Not happening. It's not in the astrology. We are on to these folks, and there's not nearly as many of them as there are of us. They're trying to make us think that we're outnumbered, but we're not. And that is a fact, Jack. Also, kind of getting into the weeds here, but for more encouraging news, planets occasionally do this thing called going out of bounds. And so normally they're on this ecliptic and they're all going around. But when they go out of bounds, like here's the normal, and then they kind of go like this. So they're circling around still, but that circle is at a different angle that is not in line with the angle of the sun. So like that gives whatever planet's going out of bounds this feral kind of energy. So like when Mars goes out of bounds, the murder rate spikes. Just to give you an idea, murder and accidents. So we can think about out of bounds as being like having left the normal limits of their action. Pluto is going out of bounds on August 29th, and this is another huge, huge deal. Like, if you've been hearing me or other astrologers going on about how, like, unprecedented astrology, like, this is one of the unprecedented things. Pluto out of bounds specifically symbolizes the turns of society from consolidated power when it goes to the north out of bounds to more socialized power when it goes to the south out of bounds. And just for one example, Pluto was out of bounds to the south starting in 1775. That number ring a bell for Americans? Just before a certain British colony busted free from a consolidated usury power in England. Pluto is much more on the side of people and peace during these out of bounds to the south periods. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, even when Pluto's out of bounds to the south, there's still, it's not going to be a enchanted carriage ride or something. It's not without struggle and bloodshed, but where we're going is humanitarian. So here's the shocking thing to me. Pluto ends this episode of being out of bounds in 73 years. That's a long time. And he's not going to be out of bounds the entire time. Like, he'll dip in and out periodically. But once this out of bounds period is over in 73 years, Pluto's going to stay in bounds for the next 1,000 years, my good bitches in Christ. We're kicking off a new world, y'all. And we have to put in the work to see how far we can get, in a positive direction. And that's another reason this eclipse looks so promising to me. And all the other planets are supporting the moon. We, the people, the moon symbolizes the people. So if we take a quick look at the chart again, giving that the moon is the people and the sun is the government, again, the moon and the future are getting all kinds of gas. And when we throw that up with the USA Sibley chart, the south node is on the USA's Neptune in the 10th house, linked to the sun and Mercury. And that makes me very hopeful that we're going to start peeling back some of the layers of lies that we've been trying to get through. Or it might be more of the government attempting to manipulate us with religion. That's another thing that Neptune's all about. Or it might just be more very obvious to everyone else, bold-faced lying. Because Neptune is a deceiver. But I'm hopeful that this is going to be like ripping the blindfold off instead. And I'm being really wildly super general here, but it struck me how many placements are so similar to 1776. You can see the ascendant house is the same. Pluto is in orb from the Pluto return. The moons are fairly close. Neptune opposition. We got a Chiron return, Uranus return, Jupiter return. It's like a rhyme that's not quite rhyming, like a broken music box or something. It's uncanny. Then we can look at that fucking guy's chart, and we've got that powerful new moon and the north node. They are squaring his sun. And the sun, south node, and Mercury are all throwing a light on his second house of values. Now, we can think of the second house as being about self-worth, but it's also about our values. And if there's one thing that sums up our current issues with that guy, it's that we don't share the same values as he does, as he has. He's got Venus in his first house, and usually Venus makes you look really good or might bring you money. In the first house especially, it's like, I look so great. But when I looked at this chart, like, sometimes I get flashes of where'd that come from insight when I look at a chart initially. And as soon as I saw that Venus in his first house, like I immediately saw like a girl getting in his face. So I'm really hoping that that girl is petaled Ophelia getting in his face. And that's not what I would immediately ascribe to, like I said, having Venus in your first house, but I've learned not to disregard little flashes like that. And we can still tie it together with Venus values and disagreeing with his values and that getting in his face. So that symbolism still works. So let's go Venus. There's so much I could speculate on here, but the bottom line is we're already seeing a pushback and we're ramping up for an even bigger pushback. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more of this kind of political discussion. Like, I feel like I can't be alive today and not talk about this stuff. And, if you're feeling the weight of all of this and you want some assistance or perspective or clarity on what this all means in your individual life, if you've got questions about anything that I'm talking about here and how it relates to you, I would love to meet with you and talk about it. You can schedule a reading with me at michellecraft.love. And astrology readings with me are not scary. My clients tell me that they feel like seen and appreciated in a brand new way when the reading's over. So, and that feels really good to me. And I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. Like everybody has powerfully wonderful things about themselves. We just forget. We just forget. So, like, subscribe, and remember, I love you, but the universe loves you so much more.